You're listening to the Bellydance Geek Clubhouse at bellydancegeek.com.
Okay, hello everybody, it's Nadira. Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to the Bellydance Geek Clubhouse.
Yay.
The Clubhouse is a place where belly dancers can get together and geek out on all of the stuff that's hard to get in classes and on DVDs. It's very easy to find information on the what of belly dance, so things like moves and repertoire, but it's a lot harder to get information on the why and how. So if you're interested in music, culture, dance composition, professionalism, it can be really tough to find those resources. So every month I'm going to interview a different guest expert on a topic related to the why and how, and we'll always include time for questions and answers so you can geek out too. So if you think that knowledge and creativity go together like chocolate and peanut butter, you're in the right place. So for the first time on the Clubhouse, I have two guests, and my guests today are Anasma and Ranya Renee. Anasma is actually joining us today from Tribal Fest. She's taking this time out from her fantastic conference schedule to join us. She's the co-founder and co-director of the New York Theatrical Bellydance Conference, director of World Citizen Dance, Inc. and World Citizen Dance School, the co-founder of the International Urban Belly Dance Collective. Anasma is a performance arts dancer, Oriental fusion master instructor, choreographer, and singer. And drawing from her cross-training in academic and ethnic dances, acting, yoga, and martial arts, Anasma focuses on making dance meaningful and touching through storytelling, character development, truthful emotions, and aesthetic, powerful movement. She's recognized by her peers for her wild creativity and her constant risk-taking and pushing the envelope. Seen in 5 continents and more than 30 countries, featured in many performance DVDs, instructional DVDs, and albums, Anasma currently tours Europe, North America, and South America, and also Asia, to teach and perform in dance festivals, intensives, and prestigious theaters. In 2013, she'll be releasing her first singing album, Chance is Back, and you can join her on Facebook or read more at anasmadance.com. And I will have that link just off to the side on the webcast, and I'll send it out after the call, too. My second guest is Rania Renee, who began her performing career more than 30 years ago as a theater actress and comedian, and moved to New York City in 1992 to continue her work as a theater director. She was gradually sidetracked by belly dance until it became her life. She's one of New York City's leading Egyptian-style dance instructors and specializes in teaching holistic technique and theatrical performance skills and coaching. She produces live events in New York and tours internationally. Ranya's signature Breathwork for Performance method has enabled thousands of artists worldwide to more effectively connect with their own art and with their audiences. She strives to create a supportive atmosphere in her workshops for both technical precision and artistic growth. Ranya's instructional DVDs, Belly Dance Egyptian Style, The Ballady, and Modern Oriental, have earned rave reviews from dancers worldwide. And in 2010, she launched her own company, Ginger City Productions, to produce more teaching and performance videos. Ginger City's first production is Belly Dance Takasim, Improvisational Skills and Drills. So we have two fantastic guests today, and Ranya and Anasma are going to tell us about using theater techniques to enhance your belly dance performance. So welcome, ladies. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Excellent. So as we have two guests today, anytime any of you would like to chime in, feel free. I just ask that you let us know who's speaking, since not everybody will recognize your voice.
Okay.
And anytime, if you'd like to have one of you answer a question or both give your take on it, go for it. So, my first question for you is, what are theater techniques exactly? How would you define that term?
Well, this is Rania, and actually just to start off, Anasma and I have had a wonderful working relationship over the past few years, even though we specialize in different styles of belly dancing, because we both have a theater background and an interest in how to apply theater techniques to belly dance. And this is why we started the Theatrical Bellydance Project and the New York Theatrical Bellydance Conference, and we've also done some other events in Paris and other places. So theatrical techniques, I started not as a dancer but as an actor, and I think there's a lot of exercises that dancers who only do dance might not be exposed to in terms of tapping into your life's experiences, or characters, being able to embody a character maybe who you see as very different from yourself, or pulling out some aspect of yourself that maybe is hidden or is maybe even ugly, and transforming that or allowing that to transform your performance in some way. And these techniques can be applied to dance. I'm sure Anasma will want to chime in with that too.
Yes, I think I did some theater as a child, and when I joined my first belly dance company, I remember my teacher would say, "Oh well, we have our first dancer, she was the princess, and the second one was the queen, and then I was the one who had lots of things to say." And it's interesting because I think I've always wanted to express things beyond the dance, and I think any art form is meant to bring a message to the people and to be a human experience where we express what we have deep inside our hearts or inside of our brains to an audience. And I think theater techniques can bring this to dancers. It can help us think about why we're here, how we're going to say things, and because it's the purpose of being all together as human beings, sharing. So,
and I think also sometimes dancers may be fine with their technique and their movements, but they're not able to really reach the audience in an emotional way or even in a human way because they're so focused on the movements. And I think this is a major thing that we are always trying to convey through the Theatrical Bellydance Conference workshops, is all the different ways that you can be present and be connected to an audience that are not that are not just about the moves in isolation, kind of. That how can you make your moves reach people? How can your arm, send a message, not just through the gesture, but that what else is it saying, or your body line, or your gaze, or even just being able to look the audience members in the eye.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to step back onto something.
Yeah, what is basically the intention? Oh, sorry?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Anasma.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear a question. But yeah, I was about to just add that it's about thinking about the intention of each movement and using technique as a tool and not as a final finality, right? Yep. It's not the end goal, it's just a way to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but I have to also say it's a very important tool. You can't deny or neglect the technique. It's an important tool, as important as the theater, but at the same time, if you just train the body, then where do you take it? And this is what is gonna touch people, is what you do with it. What makes you do your hip drop different from someone else is what you put behind and the breath you're going to add to it. And yes, what does this arm wave mean right now? If you have your palm lifted or down, combined with a certain impulse, if let's say the arm goes up faster, what does it mean? If what is the difference from it going very, very slow in a longing? So it's about giving meaning to each gesture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my phone is beeping because apparently the battery is low. So I might need to call back in with my cell phone. Is that going to be okay?
That should be just fine. So go ahead and do that when you need to.
I'm sorry, Belly Dance Geeks. So I'll
no problem.
do that. I'll do that in a moment while somebody else is talking.
Absolutely. Well, Anasma and I can talk while you get dialed back in. That's no problem.
Okay.
Okay. So, Anasma, I know that you have a lot of background in fusion dance as well, and so I'm coming from a purely cabaret background, and in my experience, most of the shows that we end up doing are these very up-close and personal venues rather than being placed on a large stage in a theatrical presentation. Can you tell us about some of the differences in venue and how understanding theater techniques can help with that?
Yes. I think, first of all, I don't know if Rania is around, but there are different venues where people can perform. I used to be, meaning restaurants, theaters, nightclubs, and theater techniques can help in any situation. I think as a performer, it's important to know how to adapt to your stage. If you're going to be in a tight space where you're very up close to people, it's important to not intimidate your audience by looking them in the eye or being right over them. So keeping a distance is important, and at the same time knowing how to create the connection, maybe through humor, or if I send the breath and my intention to 1,000 people, I might want to tone it down if I only have 5 people in front of me, just that I don't scare them. So when I have larger audiences and proscenium stage where I have a distance between the audience and me as a performer, I tend to do things bigger. And also, I think it's the difference between theater comedians and actors in cinema, where you also have to be subtle as an actor because the camera is so close to you. And if you are in a theater, you want the last people on the back row to hear you, the people in the back of the room to be able to hear you. And so I think that changes the way you perform and the intensity of things. Also, the fact of having lights is something important that can change your dancing. I think the design of lights is very important. The choice of having, first of all, some atmospheres. Are you doing a blackout at some point? Are you adding a storm? It can add a lot to the story. And I have this one piece, for instance, where I chose that the spotlight would be God, and while I was playing the little devil. So you can give meaning, yes, to, lights. Or if you have follow lights that are, looking for a ninja or somebody who escaped from prison, you can also give this effect. Or if you have the stage separated into 2 areas where you could have one blue light facing a red light, or you could have 2 spots with 2 dancers in it and they are trapped by walls, etc., etc. So you can really add a lot also to the dance by the fact of having these different elements to play with. And there's also projection that you can use if you do have a screen. So all these will add extra meaning to the dance. And there's a lot of artists nowadays who work and who have been working with mixing dance with all the audio-visual aspects, so having, playing with the different media to create different layers of story. So there's a lot to play with.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing that I'm thinking about when you're mentioning,
hey,
lighting.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. I listened to all that too, and I wanted to maybe make a note about cabaret versus theater performance too. But
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm working out my headset thing. Okay, you guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, great. I was going to say that Anasma and I actually talked a lot about this in the early days of our project together. because Anasma really has been creating her work for many, many years, really for the stage and for theatrical settings. And I guess I feel like I've been doing both, especially like kind of growing up as a dancer in the Arabic club scene in New York and doing a lot of nightclubs and parties and weddings and things like that, and also theater events, but having the variety of those settings. And I think that there really is a difference in how, like Anasma was saying, how, if you're spending energy like a long distance and it's like a small birthday party, it might be just too much, or if it's a restaurant, it might be too much. But that there's different kinds of interaction with the audience that you can have, and that you can negotiate this, and that you can still bring some sense of theater even to something that is as, sort of normal as a restaurant, or, to bring something magical to people as part of their everyday life while still being conscious that you're in that kind of a space and not on a stage. And how do you engage people? It's almost like if you compare like a street performer, how they have to work. Street performing is one of the hardest things that you can do. I would say that it's even much harder than theatrical performance, because you really have to grab the audience and find a way to hold on to them and also to get their money. There's a very direct relationship. And I've actually done street performance, and it's not an area that I want to, focus on my whole life, but the people that really do it well are complete masters at it. And there's, and that's still theater. It's, it's like theater of the street and theater of that kind of like one-on-one where you're doing your act even for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 people that are right in front of you. And so I see restaurant performances kind of similar to that. It's still a way to read the audience, but it's much more immediate. You must read the audience, whereas if they're on, you must read the audience at every moment if you're performing in a restaurant or if you're performing on the street. Whereas when you're in a theater, you have their attention directed towards you, and you can kind of get the benefit of the doubt for at least a few minutes because the lighting is on you, so they have to look at you. It's dark. They're not allowed to look at their cell phones. So, you have a captive audience, at least for a little while, and then hopefully you can hold them. And so it does, I think the theater setting has a natural sense of focus, whereas in a restaurant setting, you have to develop that sense of how to pull the audience's focus. And I think it's some similar techniques, but it's just more immediate. So, and another aspect of that, specific to like Arabic style belly dance, or I would say this would apply to any traditional style belly dancing, since it's from the Middle East, and it's based on the way music works and music improvisation works in those cultures. The audience is seen as an integral part to whether the performance works or not. So it's a bit different from the Western perspective of even music, where the composition is already set and the audience is going to either like or not like this composition. But when it's, say, an Arab musician who's improvising, whether it's a singer or a musician, they are tweaking the audience in the moment, and it's that back and forth between how the audience reacts, and sometimes they'll react audibly, like by saying like oh, or Allah, something like that. And that feedback goes right back to the musicians live in that moment and inspires them to keep going. And so the audience and the musicians kind of can reach the heights of what's called tarab, which is this musical ecstasy, together, and that's the goal of the performance. So it's a bit of a different perspective, and I think this applies to the dance as well, and that interaction between, at least in the traditional settings of parties and weddings and even restaurants, that there is that connection that's happening in the moment that is contributing to making the art. Especially, I mean, in any kind of improvisation art, I guess you find that, but it's quite explicit in Arab culture. And I'm all excited about this because I wrote a paper on this for my graduate school course, one of them this fall. And I'm going to actually be presenting that topic at the theatrical conference in a PowerPoint presentation. And it's kind of been interesting to get into that from the psychological and anthropological perspective, as well as just as a dance instructor.
Mm-hmm.
That's my geek moment, guys.
Oh, you are in the right place for that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's... Go ahead, Anasma.
No. Go ahead, Nadira.
I was just going to say that, when I was a baby dancer and first getting out to student nights, we're lucky here in Boston, we have a lot of live music. And that's when I really understood the power of working with a band was, I caught some cool accent, and then the drummer noticed and he played it again. And so it's not only did I get to show off my cool accent twice, but I really felt like a real artist at that time because the drummer was paying attention to me and, working with me, and we were creating this thing together with the audience, and what they liked was what they got more of, and what I liked was what I got more of, and it was just like this triangle of energy, and we were just all bouncing it back and forth. So it's such a powerful thing. Anyway, that was my little off-topic aside.
Yeah. I think that is right. That is right on topic because it just shows that it's the energy that's passing between us, between the musicians and us, and us and the audience, and the audience and the musicians. That it's that triangle of energy, that the way that is getting passed around, the energy, which is something that we cannot see necessarily just in the body movement. It goes beyond the body movement, and I would say that that's part of our goal in the project that we're doing, me and Anasma, to bring people's attention to all those things that are beyond the stuff that you might not see as being obvious because we work so hard on our dance technique but there are these other factors that really pull it all together.
Yes. The magical ingredients that give a little different flavor to your cake. And also, there's ways of talking about drawing the audience in and creating different ways to include them, making the energy circulate. There's also the way you look at people. Let's say, in a theater, you can have a more general focus where you could imagine like opening your gaze and your peripheral vision, you have a global type of look, whereas in a restaurant you are more confronted to having a direct focus where you would look at people in the eye, and it's all about, in both venues, I think, adapting the way you look into the audience so that you can still bring a little general focus inside of a restaurant so that you don't scare people away, and on the other hand, have a direct look where you look at people in the eyes in the theater as well so that they personally feel included, and then juggle this and balance this with moments where you look inside of yourself or with your thoughts and body where your gaze could be up or down or on the body. And it's all about finding the right balance between the different ingredients and adapting this to the different spaces you're in.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. This is really important, and it's one of those things that I don't think is addressed in a lot of dance classes about the idea of like general or diffuse focus versus direct, narrow focus. But it really changes the movement. It changes what you're doing, and also how the audience takes it, like whether they're the one being looked at or not. And having that kind of variety is very important. I addressed that a little bit in my DVD Belly Dance Taksim improvisation skills and drills, like the importance of gaze. But it's actually a really big topic, and this is another good idea for a workshop. Maybe we'll do that next year at the conference about gaze, because it's really all about the eyes and the hands. Like, it's so much about that. And okay, I'm going to have another geek moment. Like, something that I'm studying in my cognitive psychology courses is how people people really gravitate, like people are somehow maybe even innately wired to look at other people where they are looking or where they are pointing to. And it's this idea of like a joint attention where like if I'm looking at my hand, you're probably going to look at my hand too. If I turn my focus and look somewhere else, you're probably going to follow where my focus looks and take your hand or take your face away from the hand that you were looking at. And actually, people with autism don't necessarily have that ability to follow other people's gaze, but most of the population does, and we take advantage of that as performers in order to, get them to look where we want them to look and highlight the things we want and to convey our message.
And you also find this in dance technique, sorry, that's Anasma again, in popping or more generally in hip-hop, you have ways of showing where the energy is flowing through the body. It's called tracing. And you literally use your hand to show where is your chi at that moment, where is the energy, where is the wave going, and how it's circulating in the body. So there's even techniques that use that concept.
Interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
You
said that you use your hand to show it. Is that are you using your hand to follow the line or to just direct their gaze to the right area?
Yes, exactly. It's I literally show with my hand where it's like what is happening where. And you can, so let's say you're doing an inward hand wave with your left arm, and then your right hand is going to follow where the energy is, like in which articulation the energy is flowing. And so you're going to show that it's going from fingers to wrist to elbow to shoulders and then continuing through the body. And then so it's as if you were painting your body with, without having to touch yourself. Just keep a couple of centimeters of distance between the hand and where the energy is floating, and you can really make this design in this space.
Neat. So
we all do it. I mean, in traditional dance, so we use the hands for framing, and the eye gaze is usually following the hand frame and the arm frame. So those two things are always linked, I think, usually like the eyes and the hands, and because we're just playing on something that's very basic about humans.
Yes. And hands can say so much. I did an exercise the other day where I was gazing at somebody. She had to show me what was the emotion in her eyes, and I had to guess. And instead of interrupting her to tell her what I had seen in her eyes, I just let her keep going on and on and on. And we had 3 minutes where she went through all these phases of the emotion developing, and she was not allowed to use either her mouth or her shoulders or her hands or anything in her body, just her eyes. And actually her eyebrows also, of course, were engaged. And then I really saw her go through this process of changing the emotion, the story. She was telling me something that was developing through time, and it was just amazing to see how much you can say just with one body part, which is the eyes, in a couple minutes, and that you're not bored as an audience to dive into somebody's gaze and eyes, and it's very rich.
Now, when you're in a larger stage, sometimes when you're farther away from your audience, it can be harder to pick up on subtle details of the eyes. Do you have any tips on adapting that for different scales of venue?
You know, you'd be surprised what can be picked up. I think some of it is warming up your face. Like
I always do facial warm-ups before I go on stage, like kind of mushing my eyes and my mouth around, like open my eyes very wide and look around, like wide-eyed, and kind of scrunch up my mouth and like rah, 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 like make some crazy noises, because that you cannot warm up on stage. You just can't, because you look insane.
Unless you dance the monkey.
On stage, like that's the kind of thing, warming up your face before you go on, or yawning. Yawning is great. Is like, I think that's the best warm-up you can do for your face, and you can, it just really relaxes somebody's whole energy in their face. It has a really profound effect. Just yawning repeatedly, even until your eyes tear up, is a really good thing, especially if you feel tense. You should yawn. But the reason I say about facially warming up is because when your face is warmed up, you'd be surprised how far your emotions will carry, and even how far a look will carry, even if it's at a distance, I mean, obviously, like if it's at a huge distance, like if you're in an amphitheater, you just have to really wear a lot of makeup. Because, if it's like very big distance, then it might not show. But if there's lighting, and even if it's an average-sized theater, I think those things can convey. I don't know. What do you think, Anasma?
I think you're right. I think, for example, there's a performer who really compels me with his eye work, Queen Harish from Rajasthan.
Oh, Queen Harish, yeah.
Yeah, you could look at him from, 20, 30 meters far away, but you can still see the little flicker of his lower lid, and it's pretty amazing. I think I totally agree with Rania that the facial warm-up is important. I love to massage my jaws also. Like, there's so many muscles that get very tense here, so like between the lower and upper, teeth, you can just rub your face there and try to get out the tension.
Do that before you put your makeup on.
Yeah, before you put the makeup. In mime and in clowning, you have two different techniques where your eyes and your nose have to go in the same direction at the same time. So then this way, you also show by the placement of your face where your eyes are looking. So I don't know if you want to try it as you're listening to the show. Instead of just having your eyes going right and left and isolating them, just try to send eyes and nose to the right. And then you're going to create a bigger effect, of course, for people looking at you from far away. Another thing is, I forgot my idea. Yes, is if you know that people are not going to see your face so much, you really have to make your intention and message very clear, and it has to go through the body. And so sometimes in some dance styles, like modern dance, they don't use their face so much. It depends, of course, on who's the choreographer, but there is this exercise where your body, your posture, the tension you put in your arms and hands are going to be the trick. They're going to tell the story for you, or I would say for me, the face has to dance as much as the rest of the body.
Yes.
But if you don't have the capacity to show your face, if people are very far away from you, then you have to find other ways to reach them. And the muscle control is a way to do it. The posture, for example, if you have your chest up and forward and then your chin back, you're going to feel like you're turning into a cop or a Baywatch, a safeguard or lifeguard.
Baywatch lifeguard?
Yeah. You're just, macho man. Or maybe you just had a boob job and you're very proud of your new bust.
Yeah.
And if you put the chest down with your chin forward, then you feel very insecure, little child or teenager or little old lady or maybe a turtle, maybe even an animal. So being aware of these things, the body language has so much to say.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that certain emotions will bring the energy down, and certain emotions will carry your center of gravity higher. And all these will complete the gaze and the look and the way you can convey your message with other things than the face. And also using the face is important, but there's the whole like being careful with authenticity. If you go just beyond that fine line of too much, then you lose people. Like you force them into going in an emotion, and maybe they're not ready to go there with you at that precise moment. So you have to find the soft point where you can bring them to understand you on an emotional human level, but not manipulate how you want them to feel. And sometimes, so I think using your face is very important, but using too much of your face can turn people off, and it's something to be careful about.
I think it's also a stylistic thing too. Like if you're going for like a very stylized performance, you may be able to stylize your face more. And if we're going for like natural, I do mostly Egyptian dance, and if you want to feel natural or you want to look natural, like you just, enjoying life kind of. And there's not that much room for expressed anger in Egyptian dance. It's really like that's the aesthetic, is you're not like passionate in the same way that flamenco is passionate. So, I think there are cultural and stylistic aspects to even showing emotion, and then the face goes with the emotion. Like, there's nothing that is more disturbing to me than seeing somebody just with a smile plastered on their face the whole time, and like there's no effect in their emotions. It doesn't look sincere. We never hold a smile for such a long time. It's not natural to hold it for that long. Like, it has to evolve. So even if your overall vibe is one of happiness that you want to share, as in a lot of traditional dance, the joy, the happiness is much more important to share than the pain and the sadness, although that's part of it. But it's always filtered to this happy feeling of like, hey, at least we're dancing. And I think there's a way to do it in a natural way, but aiming for neutral is sometimes better than aiming for happy, happy, happy. And I think sometimes dancers are afraid to be neutral and allow the music to affect them, or to allow some passing emotion to affect them, and they control it too much by just smiling all the time. Or in other styles of dance, I will watch sometimes a tribal fusion group, and they're very serious the whole time. And their seriousness is like held the whole time, or their fierceness. And I think that also can be a problem, because it's like, if it's holding the same facial expression or the same emotion for the whole performance, it doesn't have an arc, it doesn't go anywhere. And life goes places. There's ups and downs, and there's times that are more passionate and times that are more peaceful. And so being able to express those things and allow yourself to go there, I think is very important. I was going to add another interesting exercise to what Anasma was saying about the body and the body language. There's an exercise in acting called the neutral mask, and I don't know if any of you have worked with the neutral mask before. This is a fascinating exercise, and I remember when I first started teaching performance workshops or acting for dancers in the mid-90s. This is a long time ago. I used the neutral mask on a bunch of belly dancers. And the neutral mask is a white mask that just looks totally neutral, like it really has no expression. And when you put on the neutral mask and you just walk and you try to go for neutral, like you look at the mask before you put it on, you aim for being neutral. And it's very difficult to come off as neutral, because there are things in our body that give us away, either like that what Anasma was saying, like these, some angle of your chest can matter in what emotion gets assigned to that, or even what personality type gets assigned to that by people who are watching. So if you work with a neutral mask, you can become more aware by getting feedback from people. Like when you try to go to neutral, it's not actually totally neutral. What is sticking out? Like, is there something about your body that is conveying one message without you even realizing it, because you're trying to go for neutral? So that's one thing. The other thing is that people have their kind of stamp, a kind of temperament that is like a type. Some people are fiery naturally. Some people are more watery naturally. Some people are more like really chill and kind of nothing bothers them. Some people are easily irritated. Some people are on edge a lot, just naturally on edge. And some people are like totally chill no matter what happens. People have a different type. And a lot of times dancers, when they perform, they tend to stay in the safe zone of their own type. And what is more useful is if they work against their type. So I'm kind of a fiery person. When I perform, it's better for me to go for really neutral and like kind of like chill, because it'll balance the fire that I have naturally. Somebody who's kind of quiet and laid back and a little bit shy and maybe not as outward with their expression, they may need to go really overboard, not overboard, but like really push their own limits, go past their comfort zone to get that fire out, and then it will balance with what they have. So I think that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, that there's different types of people. You got to accept your type, be proud of your type, and then balance it by working the other areas that are not, that might not even be as, feel as natural to you. Because, you know, I mean, when we perform, we don't have to be like exactly who we think we are regularly. Like, we don't have to satisfy our urge to say, I'm me, darn it, I'm me. Because what goes out into the world is a performance that is just a performance, and it doesn't have to be tied to you per se. It's something, does that make sense? That, like,
yes.
It's like we don't have to necessarily reinforce our identity in performing. We can actually just put out a performance that taps into some kind of humanity, and it may not even be what we expect of ourselves regularly, like from our everyday personality or our everyday temperament.
I would add to that I totally agree. That when we perform, we put on different masks and we can have different facets of ourselves. And it's really a great thing about performance is that you can go explore other aspects of your personality and other, you know, emotions that you don't dare to sometimes to put on in your real life. I've discovered that anger in dance is a very powerful tool. It might, you know, take away my energy faster than other emotions, but it's a very powerful emotion to work with, for example, or it's a good, it almost feels like a good therapy to dance these emotions out. And sometimes also, so like, for example, with me, I have characters that, or this different archetypes that keep coming back, and it's great to be able to play around with them and then develop them through time. The little devil, I'm discovering more and more why he came to life and what is really his purpose and why is he serving humanity by making fun of all our weaknesses and the temptation. And his new development will be turning into a political message I want to give. And there is this one. There is the warrior woman. There is the feminine woman. There is the angry woman, mujer fatal, who's very sensual. There is the child. There are so many different facets that are nice to explore and let broaden. And I think it's important to allow ourselves not to be always perfect, always that one image that we have, and accept we can make mistakes because we're simply humans. And when we accept this, I think we make ourselves also more accessible to other people, whether it's students or audiences, because we're all the same in that regard. And allowing ourselves as performers to be vulnerable is powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the big, even in terms of practice, like I think there's things that you can practice. Like I'm thinking, like in Egyptian dance, people in the traditional setting, people don't really show anger that much. It's just not really a part of the aesthetic. But I do think that it could be therapeutic to work with it privately and to work with anything. Like I think that dancers are sometimes afraid of doing any move that looks not good or experimenting with any emotion that they don't feel fits into the box of what they want to express. And you limit yourself too much that way. And I think having the range of being able to experience human emotions in whatever setting, it means that it gives you more texture as a person, and it enables you to, like, even if you're not going to that place on stage, it gives you a kind of depth as a person, which is something you can't really fake. But it's something that it's like, I don't know, giving yourself like a tattoo or a scar, like a special battle scar that you have, that you don't always have to be reliving that battle, but that because you've lived it, it's going to add depth to your character and just to you, I think, personally. So I think that finding our places that are rough or imperfect or even ugly or dorky or whatever is actually a very powerful tool for dancers, even if they don't, show those things on stage. That to work with them in practice is still a really useful way of, putting in, just building depth to who you are, I think.
I agree.
Okay. I really hate to cut us off here because I could keep doing this for 2 hours, but I know that Anasma has to leave in about 10 minutes. So as much as I hate to do it, I think I'm going to put an end to the interview here so that we have some time for people to ask questions before Anasma has to go. Before I do that, I do want to say that this has been incredibly interesting. I've been taking notes all the time on I want to do that, or, I want to ask the students about that.
Come to the conference, man. You can possibly come to our conference. It really is a special conference. Like, I mean, maybe we're biased, but we really try to create something that explores a lot of these things that we've been talking about. And there's so many teachers who have so much to offer who are bringing their own takes on this. And anyway.
And it's really a collaboration.
Theatricalbellydance.com. We have all the info up there, so get on our email list. It had to be a promo there. But anyway, we'd love to.
And we have a Facebook page, too.
But totally, we want to hear people's questions.
Okay, well, before we get into the questions, let me just take a minute. So can you give us a quick rundown on the conference? So what are the dates? What's involved?
So it's happening from June 6 to 10 in New York City this year, 2013. We'll have 3 days of intensive workshops with 16 master teachers.
Not 2 days. It's 4 days.
Oh, well, 3, yes, that's the weekend, and then we just added the Monday, so you're right.
It's actually 4 days of workshops and then 4 nights of shows, like from Thursday night through Sunday night we have shows, and from Friday day to Monday day we have workshops. And it's possible to just come for one day or to come for a few workshops. Yeah, but and then we're hoping to do this annually. Last year we didn't do it because it's really a huge project, but hopefully we're going to be getting into the swing of things so we can do it on a yearly basis. But we have some really amazing teachers this year, and I hope people can come. So.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that a couple of the workshops have already sold out, so people should sign up quickly if they're interested.
Yes, actually, yeah. And some are close to selling out. Because we keep them small because, like, the top workshop size is about 30 people, I think, and some of them are less than that because we try to keep it a manageable amount of people so that people can do these. You know, it's not just everybody just doing choreography or technique. It's getting into some more interesting areas. So, you know, people love it who've been to the conference. It's like kind of a meaningful event. Like you go a little deeper than the average dance conference. You still get to dance, but it's pretty thought-provoking and I think quite inspiring. And as teachers, we are excited to take the other teachers' workshops and you would be so surprised. Like, I mean, some of the greatest revelations as teachers are people that I wouldn't necessarily study with regularly because, like, I'm mostly focused on Egyptian-style dance. But that's one of the great things about the conference is that everybody's learning with teachers from all different styles, and the teachers are kind of presenting their workshops so that anybody from any belly dance style can get something out of it. And it's just an amazing collaboration for us as teachers as well as for the participants who are taking the workshop.
Okay. So if you want to geek out with Rania and Anasma some more, go to theatricalbellydance.com. And, all right, so I'm going to open up the line to questions. So if you're listening on the webcast, you can type in your questions in the Q&A box at left. And if you're on the phone and you'd like to ask a question, you can press *2 to raise your hand. So if you're calling from a regular phone, that's *2 on your phone. And if you're calling in on Skype, that's *2 on the Skype keypad, not necessarily on your keyboard. Okay. Now, I know that the webcast is about 15 seconds behind us, so I'm going to give them a little time to type in their questions. In the meantime, if anybody on the call wants to ask a question, you can press *2.
Nadira, you're like such a pro. This is so cool.
Oh, thank you. This is my 8th call, and I've done about.
Yeah, I'm so impressed. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I was like, this is fun. Okay, we've got a hand raised. So Helen in Baltimore, you are now unmuted.
Hi, Helen.
Hi there, Helen. Can you hear us?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you said Helen. I don't know how you got that name.
Oh, that's the name that's showing up on my phone thing. I'm sorry about that. So what is your name?
Gloria.
Gloria.
Yes.
What's your question?
Actually, I've recently, I lived in the U.S. for a long time, and I've performed in restaurants and small stage shows. But I recently moved to Ghana, West Africa, and I'm performing in these really huge hotel venues. Because Ghana is pretty much hot year-round, all of the events that they do take place outside on a huge stage with usually around pools with long runways going all around the pool, and people are usually seated behind the pool area. So basically I'm dancing on a huge stage, and also the only way to get close to people is to go along these narrow type runways around the pool area to get closer to them. So I actually had realized I had to change my my sets drastically. Main reason because of the heat. It's like 90, 80 degrees in Ghana all the time, even at night. So I've taken my 20-minute shows, 20, 30-minute shows, and I've decreased it to 10-minute shows. That way I'm not, passing out from the heat. But I found that in order to make it more interesting for the guests, seeing as though they're so far away and I have so much space to cover and trying to get to people on all sides. I mean, people are sitting on all sides of me, all over the pool area. I have to run around back and forth trying to get close enough to show people what I'm doing. I can't stand like in the middle of the stage and perform. So it's really hard for me to do anything slow so I can take a break from doing things that are really, really quick. So my question is, seeing as I have so much space to cover and so many people, different people to get to, how can I slow down the music and dancing so I can have a little bit of variety in my shows instead of me always doing very, very fast songs and doing very, very fast movement? I would like to do some slow songs because I feel like that's what I'm best at, but I don't really feel like I can do that.
Gloria, it's Gloria, right?
Yeah, it's Gloria. I actually took a workshop with you, Renee, in Frederick not too long ago.
Oh, cool. Well, were you there for the breath work for performance workshop?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so the breath work for performance technique works when you are in a small space, and it also works when you're in a big space. Basically, you can send your energy farther if you do it consciously, and it really works. You have to sort of project it and imagine that like you're painting the people that are far away from you, like that you're almost like that when you breathe, like let's say you exhale and you have maybe an arm gesture to go with it, like a sweeping arm gesture, and you exhale. Imagine almost like you are long distance spray painting those people. Okay. With your air and with your energy, and you look to them. That's a way that you can convey your energy to them even when they are far away, and you don't always have to go to them. Now, I mean, if there are sight lines such that people can't see you unless you really move around the performance space, or if the people who've hired you really want you to work the whole space, you should work the whole space. But you don't necessarily have to feel like you have to run around and do it. Like you can do it in an elegant way where you don't feel like you're waiting tables, with like you don't have to run to this person or run to that person and run. You can kind of take your time doing it as long as you're also sending your energy actively and putting a lot of the focus on that.
I would also add that if you feel like doing a slow song, you should go for it, because if you feel inspired to do that, also it's protecting you from the heat, and it's okay to do it. Don't feel obliged. And I think also you could give some ideas, for instance, is to give different textures to the space around you. For instance, if you're going on this little, very thin corridor around the swimming pool, right? Just make one, you can just give yourself little, let's say, restrictions or limits that will unleash your creativity. Let's say, on this section of the swimming pool, I'm going to imagine I am going along a wall, and I can only do movement on one plane of my body. So it might change a little bit the stylization, or like I don't want you to turn into a modern dancer, but it's a cool idea to think, oh, I can only move on the side of my body, and how would I turn, or how would I adapt my hip movement if I were to only dance on the sagittal or coronal plane? A sagittal plane is the one, for instance, dividing your body right and left. If you are dancing on the coronal plane, it divides your body front and back. So maybe you can only go, with your profile towards a direction. And then you take another side of your swimming pool and set that you're dancing in the mud. So you're going to be very, 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 very slow. And maybe on the last part of the pool, you go back to going on the main stage, and your story on that part is story and intention is, now that I've gone through these difficulties, I'm finally relieved that I can go back home. So just create these different ideas that you can play with so that you don't feel you're always doing the same thing, having to run and be in a rush. And even if you had to run, make a story also for that. Why do you have to run?
Yeah, like have fun
why,
with it.
Why are you late? Like imagine you're the White Rabbit and you're guiding Alice in Wonderland. I don't know. Like if you.
And I think if I can jump in, if you're being hired, the employer may have something in mind that they want also, and you need to also figure out like what do these people want to experience? Do they want to experience glamour? Like do they want to see you as like a superstar? Then you act like a superstar, and by working with your energy, it's going to convey that. And I mean, sadly, when you have to reach people that are really far away from you, it won't always be that the tiny little dance movements that they can see, but they can see your energy and how comfortable you are with yourself. And that's something that you can project by really actively pulling them in. Like when you inhale, that you're inhaling those people that are far away from you. And when you exhale, you're exhaling and you're painting them. So that puts you in contact with the audience. It gets their attention. It's much more like street performance in that way, like, or being restaurant performer, where you have to really actively rope people in, but not necessarily by going to them. You know, you can do it with your eye focus long distance.
You can basically bring them to you instead of you going to them also.
Yeah. That's great. Ooh, I want to go to Ghana, and we'll maybe come and visit you in Ghana, Toria.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria.
An excellent question. Before we take another question, I just do want to give a quick time check. Anasma, I think this was about the time you said you needed to go.
Yes, I have to leave you. Thank you again so much for this time together. I was really happy to be with our Belly Geek. And I hope to meet you all soon and see you at the conference and maybe other events and venues and share more of these visions of art.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anasma, and enjoy the rest of Tribal Fest.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you soon, Anasma.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Take care.
Okay. So, Rania, can you stay on the line if we have more questions?
Yes, I can stay.
Okay, great. So if anybody has any questions for Rania Renee, you can raise your hand by pressing *2 if you're on the phone or Skype, or you can type in your question in the box at left if you're on the webcast. And while it takes everybody a couple minutes to find their questions, I actually have a question that a Facebook user asked in advance. So Brenna asks, how can you blend the two techniques, so using theatrical techniques, but still keeping it Egyptian or Oriental style?
What I gave, the advice that I gave to Toria about the breath work, I think is one way to do it. The other, to me, I mean, my breathwork technique really made a big difference for my career, and I've seen it make a big difference for a lot of people because it really put the focus on pulling in the audience and me sending out my energy to them without necessarily expecting something in return, just to have a larger projection of my personal energy. And that can be combined with all of your dance techniques. So when you are working with a gesture or a movement, you can just imagine that it is bigger than your body is, that it actually it extends farther and it can have more of an energetic impact if you actually consciously put your energy with it. And breathing is a good way to send energy, and it's a good way to convey spirit and intention and just like the chi, the life force that you can just, when you breathe with a movement, you are putting the life force with that movement. So that's one way. The other way, one other way I like to work with it is working with character types. So, I might be doing a show that's like an Egyptian-style show, and all of a sudden, I feel a little bit like Mick Jagger, or I feel like, Beyonce, or I feel, like Madonna or Mae West or whoever, and just borrowing that person's, or Preeti Abdu, taking examples from the great dancers, or Samia Gamal, great Egyptian dancers, and that I can just borrow their personality and just live in their body, or imagine that I have their body for a few moments. And that is another way that you can keep things fresh for yourself and infuse your movements with this character. And the audience does not have to be aware of what you're doing. Like, you could just go into James Brown for a few moments there while you're doing your Bellady, and nobody really has to know. But it's something that will keep you interested, keep you present. And then that's something that people can really feel. They can, even if they don't know how you're getting there, they feel that you are present. And that's, when you're present with them, then they'll be more present with you. And it magnifies the experience that you will both have.
I don't know whether this was a tone to the original question, but a follow-up question that I have on that is, you mentioned anger not being something that's very frequently expressed in Egyptian style. Would you say that there are any other boundaries or kind of warning signs when you might be stepping a little bit too far into
let me put it this way.
Or an Egyptian?
I think that the aesthetic for Egyptian Oriental dancers is like more in its sort of traditional feminine. I think that's changing a little bit these days, but I still think that is something that's valued maybe by Egyptian audiences, is that sweetness and light, that even if you're addressing some kind of a more serious topic, I mean, like if you're dancing to like Anas and Ranya, where I was waiting for you, and I wish I had never loved you to begin with, that's a little angry, actually, but the way it's expressed is just not like all-out anger, So there's ways of, it's not that emotion is something you would never go for, but it's tempered to the fact that you're dancing. And so there's naturally going to be a little more of a lightness to it, at least in that context, at least in the traditional Egyptian context. So I don't know. Am I on the right track there? Or what did it?
Definitely. What I was thinking is, is there anything to watch out for, or is there any way to know when you might be going too far down that road? Or any road?
Here's the thing. Fiery people need to breathe, and I always breathe with my mouth a little bit open. And if you're fiery, I recommend that you do this, because if you close your mouth, you might look angry. Somebody who has, there are also people who look sad when they're performing. They have a more sad, energetic stamp, and they might not be sad, but if they close their mouth, they're going to look sad. So it's kind of like you want to keep the circulation going so that your natural stamp doesn't define your whole performance. So when I say like your natural stamp, like if you're a fiery person, or if you're a more, mellow person, or if you're like a spacey person, or, these are not value judgments. These are all just different people have different types. And if you look around at the people in your life, you're going to see that different people have different types. Also, different people are influenced by, what they eat or drink, or what kind of a day they have, or if their job is stressful. So there are all those things that also might add to the baseline emotion that somebody would express. So like if I'm doing a piece that has an angry flavor to it, if I really express that anger in an all-out kind of way, it probably would be too fiery and too intense. And so I have to know myself to know my limits in that. And I think that that's something that everybody has to do personally, is to kind of figure out what type they are and to try to work opposite that type, so that if you're a fiery person, you work more mellow, and if you're a mellow person, you try to work more fiery, even if it doesn't feel like you. Because sometimes people are like, well, this feels like me. And it's like, well, that's because that's your stamp. And just because it feels like you doesn't mean you have to keep repeating and underlining that thing. It will come out naturally. What you want to work on is the other aspects that might be, you know, like a little more foreign to you, but which will help balance your portrayal. And that will help limit you from going too far, I think. I also think coaching is really important. And there's a lot of different teachers who are good coaches, and they coach in different ways. And I think it's working with somebody who pushes you a little bit beyond your comfort zone, who also that you trust their feedback, or even a friend or partner whose feedback you trust, that they don't have an alternate, you know, any ulterior motive or other agenda or whatever giving you feedback, that you could really benefit from having that. And also just taking videotapes of yourself and analyzing them in a compassionate way. And video doesn't show everything, but sometimes you can actually objectively look at things a little easier when you're not doing it in that moment. So that would be, and I mean, I teach performance workshops and focus a lot on how to integrate all of these things. And then, you know, in the work that we do at the conference, of course, I think different teachers are bringing their own perspectives to it, and too. So, you know, that's what I would advise people in that journey, that it's really, you want to become aware of what impression you are giving to the audience and not beat yourself up about it if it's not the impression you want, but just to kind of go through it scientifically and figure out what are the aspects that are sticking out that you can kind of chill out about or minimize, and getting at the root of it and not just making a surface level fix sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that the types idea would make a fabulous workshop.
Well, I teach this all the time, like when I'm doing performance coaching with people. So it's something that I guess I'm always teaching, but you're right that it would make a good workshop on its own, too. There's a lot of workshops to do.
So much geekery, so little time.
But, I mean, if people come to one of my intensives, they're going to totally get that kind of tailored feedback, like, because I've been doing intensives in New York, working with the live musicians and working with performance skills as well as dance skills. And I think, you know, everybody who leaves is going to have a sense of where they need to work on those things. So, you know, that's, I mean, I definitely work on those things in my intensives. And also even coaching people, like, online. And I'm sure, I mean, Anasma's not on the call right now, but I'm sure she also does that kind of thing, too, like Skype coaching for people and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're both touring, too, so it's not like people have to come to New York or go online either. One of my coaching clients told me that you're coming to Minneapolis soon, too. She's really excited about that.
To Duluth, actually.
Duluth. Mm.
Yeah, Duluth in June 1st and 2nd.
Excellent.
So, and apparently
that's
not
right before
too
your
far.
event, too.
I know. That's not too far from Minneapolis, though. That apparently it's like just like a 3-hour drive. And somebody suggested, oh, yeah, you could just rent a car at the airport in Minneapolis and go up there. Actually, we are going to be working on character and performance and a couple other performance techniques, other performance techniques there, too. So yeah, get in touch with them if you want to come. But yeah, it's true. You know what, though? Like, New York is my home base, and the kind of things, the kind of intensives that I've been doing in New York are, like, I don't know. I feel like I can cover this stuff even a little more in depth when we have that performance opportunity, too. I did one of these in Vancouver, too, where we did like a few days long intensive. I think that it helps if you have more days, honestly, because then you can get a little really deeper into this stuff, than you can in just like 1 or 2 days of workshops. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put out one last call for questions. So if you have a question for Rania, or if you'd like to just share your biggest takeaway from this call, the most important thing you learned or the coolest fact, go for it. You can press *2 to raise your hand if you're calling in, or you can type in your question in the box at left. Oh, this has been so much fun. I have so many notes.
Good.
That's a sign of a good geeky call, is when, you're scrambling to write down everything that you want to follow up on.
We try to provide the geekitude for you.
Well, I knew you were a good person to come to for geekery. I remember when the Ballady came out, everybody was like, oh, my God, you have to see this. She, explains how the music works. And I'm like, oh. Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands yet. I'm going to give the webcast people another minute to type in any questions.
People have learned all they need to know.
Well, while we're waiting for the last questions to come in, is there anything else you'd like to tell people about the conference, about theatricality, or maybe
this was really fun talking about this with you, and I actually I kind of did this crazy thing and went back to graduate school, and I'm studying cognitive psychology, and it's amazing how much of that applies to what we're doing in dance, and that, all the stuff with gaze, and there's all parallels on this kind of stuff in the psychological literature for non-theatrical settings. And so I think that, one thing is that people can really benefit from theatrical techniques in their real life, as well as the theater benefiting from just the way that humans are, that theater takes advantage of the way that we are as humans and the general qualities that will apply to all humans, that we're easily suckered by different things, that we're easily taken in by some things, and that theater takes advantage of those aspects and magnifies them and highlights them, but that you can also take those techniques and apply them covertly in little real-life situations, too. And, there's kind of life is theater and theater is life. It may look different but on the outside, but there's actually quite a lot of similarities if you kind of look at that. And it may make you a more discerning judge of the types of things that people notice, the types of things that bug people, the types of things that are win people success, and to figure out how to apply those in your dancing. And just mainly that the dance is not just about the movements, and it's not just about making sure your hip is in the right place, but how is it actually conveying something beyond just the body, which is supported by the body, but which is not just the body part in isolation. And I think that might be a good takeaway if people are looking for a takeaway.
I love it. And it looks like we don't have any more questions coming in here, so I think that's a beautiful place to end.
Okay, cool.
Well, thank you so much, Rania.
Thank you,
Anasma again.
I know that Anasma enjoyed the call, too, and thank you so much for inviting us onto the Geeky Clubhouse this time.
My pleasure. And thanks, everybody, for coming. I know that for a lot of people, this is the middle of the workday, and so it's especially awesome that you showed up. Yeah. And this is the end of our call, but that doesn't mean that the conversation has to end. So we do have a private Facebook group for the Bellydance Geek Clubhouse. I'll be sending an email out to the mailing list shortly, which will have the recording of this call, but also an invitation to the Clubhouse link. So if you want to keep talking, we can do it there. In that email, I'll also include links to Rania and Anasma's websites, and also the link to the Theatrical Bellydance Conference. So if you're interested in taking that, you'll want to check that out quickly.
Yeah, totally. It's so good. I'm just beside myself with how good these workshops are going to be. And it's just this is really the payoff for us, because it's so much work for us to put this together, but the payoff is really taking all these amazing gem-like workshops from the teachers we've invited. So
the hardest
really
thing is going to be to pick which workshops to take. You know, there are 3 tracks
yeah.
going on, so you've
got
got to pick the 2. That's the hard part.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy, but, you know, figure out what calls to you. And for people who are interested in Egyptian dance, I'll just make a plug that I'm doing a multi-day intensive at the beginning of August with Nani, who's a wonderful Egyptian dancer who basically, like, retired from dancing in Egypt and moved to Paris and had kids, and now she's back in the game, and I'm thrilled to be working with her. Her name is Nani, and she is married to one of the musicians I work with, and so we're going to be doing some work on Kulthum and all the emotion of that from the Egyptian dance perspective. And, you know, so people will be getting a lot of the kind of stuff that I talked about today in reference to Kulthum and Egyptian dance. And Nani is a really musical, emotional performer, too, and I think people will really enjoy it if they're able to do that. So that's August 1st through 5th if you can't make the theatrical conference, or if you want to come to both. And that's what's going on the next couple months.
Cool. I'll include the link to that, too, if the web page is up already.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
so
I don't know if it is or not. That's on Rania.net, so, or people should just contact us at Rania.net so they'll get the quickest information. We're going to be sending it out probably in a couple days. So.
Okay, great. I'll include whatever the most up-to-date information is then when I send out that email. Okay. And obviously, if you're listening to this recording in a couple days, just go ahead straight to Rania.net, and it'll probably be there soon. Okay.
Yeah, and Anasma's website is it's anasmadance.com. But anyway, you can find her via theatricalbellydance.com, and we're both reachable through there too.
Yep, and I'll include both of those links as well.
Cool.
All right.
Pleasure talking with you today, ladies.
A pleasure talking to you too.
Potentially gentlemen. Okay.
Excellent. So our next call has not been scheduled yet. It's going to be someday in the second week of June. My guest is Julie Eason of the Bellydance Business Academy, and she is the reason that you're listening to me today. She's the one who took me from a local dancer with this little podcast to somebody who had the skills and the confidence to speak on the national stage. So she's going to talk about promoting your events and classes. And we have a little bit of a crazy idea for this that we need your input on. So if you'd like to weigh in on what you'd like Julie's talk to be formatted as, please join us in the Facebook group. Again, I'll be sending out the invitation there. We're looking at some mix of having an interview like we had today with Rania, and possibly also having a hot seat spot. So one person can talk about their own event or business and have Julie give specific targeted information on how to promote in that situation. So I've been on calls like that in business contexts rather than dance contexts, and they're really fascinating. So go ahead and give us your input in the Facebook group on whether that's something you'd be interested in so we can plan that. And the last thing I'd like to say is that the clubhouse is the come-on-in kind of clubhouse, not the no boys allowed type. So if you know anybody who would enjoy these calls, you can invite them to join us at bellydancegeek.com/clubhouse. And until next time, happy dancing. Thanks again, everybody, for coming. And thank you so much, Rania.
Oh.
And Anasma, if you're listening to the recording later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. For more geek-tacular resources, visit bellydancegeek.com.